Hi, Disneylanders with special needs. This is Ashley Jones coming at you with another video. I'm sorry it's been such a long time, but I told you back in December that I was having sinus surgery and that I would be taking an extended break for a while. Sorry about you hearing dogs in the background, but that happens. You hear my dog sometimes too. So, with this video, after my recovery and everything going much smoother than expected, I can start making videos once in a while again. So, I do hope I sound a lot better to you when I'm talking. So, let's get into it. Okay, so my first announcement is that Disneyland throwback tickets are still on sale for the general public to purchase. But just FYI, Disneyland Star Wars Nights tickets for May the 4th are sold out. So you will not be able to purchase tickets for May 4th. So, sorry about all the noise in the background. Anyway, the next part of the announcement is going to be for Throwback Night. I am going to Throwback Night on April 18th. For those who would like to go to Throwback Night, which celebrates the first 2 decades of Disneyland's existence. Well, actually the 50s and 60s, so 1955 to the late 60s. So, Throwback Night is going to include dancing, DJs, lots and lots of music, photo opportunities, as well as foods from Disney's, first decade. So that's going to be incredible. I don't know what the food is going to be, but I'm interested to see what happens. I'm also excited to possibly try some foods that might be really, really good. I don't know what's going to happen from there, but kind of hopefully they'll have one of the baked potato soup recipe that Chef Oscar used to make at the Carnation Cafe. Or there might be recipes that people haven't had since, Disneyland's first decade. We don't know what the food options are going to be, but stay tuned for that, because it's going to be very interesting to see. I will be going on April 18th. That ticket is still available if anybody would like to go. The price is $129 for April 18th for Throwback Night. And April 20th, I think, is $149. Yeah, so the ticket varies in price by $20, I think it is. Yeah. And so I picked the cheaper one too because April 18th is sooner and it's, $20 cheaper. So you are saving some money, even though it's $20. Every dollar counts when you're wanting to save. The other thing to remember is that the after hours events have some rules and some general information that you need to follow. So with these throwback night events and other after dark events at Disneyland, you will have to remember to go get your wristband when it's time for the event. Those who do not have a after dark ticket and a wristband will be escorted out of the park at 8:00 p.m. Those who have their ticket for the after hours events, including Throwback Night, will have a wristband, and they will be able to mix in with other guests until those who do not have an event ticket will be escorted out at 8 o'clock. So make sure you follow all the directions, or unfortunately you will be escorted out with everybody else. You have to be really watchful. And the other thing to remember is that these events run late, these after hours events. So from 9 p.m., the party kicks off officially. Then it stays on until 1 a.m. Yeah, you've heard that right, 1 a.m. So extremely late. Some people don't make it that long, and others have such an adrenaline rush that they're having a blast, and they do end up making it till 1 in the morning. Only to absolutely, either go home or go to a hotel and have trouble waking up the next day. But there's a few things to remember too about your health during these events. Remember to not only stay hydrated and eat enough, but also know your energy level and how you feel when you're up late. Also, the one thing is to remember too, with these events too, like anytime there's alcoholic drinks and everything at some of these events, remember not to drive home drunk. It's not safe and it will have serious consequences. Another thing to remember is to treat the cast members and characters as well as guests with respect, and don't be mean. And there's no profanity allowed at the Disneyland or any other Disney parks. So if you're using profanity and a cast member catches you, you will most likely be told to leave, and you will not get your money back. You will be just out. So don't be, mean to everybody and expect to get away with it, because you won't. I've seen some after hours events, like the one when I went to Oogie Boogie Bash before the pandemic. One person I saw got escorted out because he was cussing people out for no reason. You don't look good. You don't, you just pretty much are making yourself a fool. Don't be like that, because now I see too many people getting in trouble because they don't like something that's said to them, or their plans don't go according to what they want. Unfortunately, some plans are not always going to go according to your plan. Some things will happen, like, you might get hurt or something, or you might get a blister on your foot, making it hard to enjoy the event. Or a photo opportunity goes wrong. Sometimes even other things, like inclement weather, and many other things will happen to where you might get mad. But don't take it out on anybody else, because you just really will ruin the night for yourself and some other people too. You're going to get stared at too if you cause trouble. Yeah, you won't be anybody's friend at that point. Another thing to remember is that everybody who is there to enjoy the events really also does not want to deal with drunk people either, because when you're drunk and doing things that you're not supposed to, even putting yourself and others at risk, nobody would really want you in the parks ever again. And sometimes some of the cast members might recognize you down the line because they take your picture for things. So I don't know if they sometimes keep certain files on hand or what to remember unruly guests. So watch out. But you do know too, at events and even in the park, you will most likely be photographed and or videotaped anytime Disneyland chooses to do so. and they have a right to videotape you. So you need to remember that as well. Now let's get into what might possibly be another important thing for this throwback night event I'm going to. Also, with this dances and the DJ and everything, remember too that when people are chaotically moving around, dancing, or anything, be aware of where you are and be safe. Also watch your boundaries. If you accidentally, know your manners. If you knock into somebody, apologize. If by any chance at all you feel like you're going to get into a spat with somebody, don't. Because then, once again, you're putting yourself at risk for getting ejected out of the park. Keep your hands to yourself. Because I've seen a few people getting ready to lash out at each other over the years at any Disneyland trip I've had. It's not pretty. You just look like a kid lashing out at everybody, trying to use your hands. And that doesn't solve anything. So, those are some things to remember. Another thing is also remembering with any events as well, with the food, please also remember that there are some foods that you may not be used to at these events. There'll be food separately made just for these events. As usual with the food, please also remember I have to do this too. I have to remember, and I don't eat fish anyway, but I am allergic to it. So I do have to follow the allergy information inside the parks and to ask if a certain food item is either cross-contaminated with fish or may unfortunately have fish inside of it without me knowing. Because you don't want to have anaphylactic shock inside the events or the parks, and you really don't want to end up having to go home and go to the hospital. So also be aware of your allergies if you have any. I have been really lucky because so far I have never had a cross-contamination event happen to me, and I really hope it never happens. But in case it does, know what your warnings are in case you don't feel good or starting to have trouble breathing. If you have trouble breathing, immediately make gestures if you can't talk. Flap your hands. Put your hand around your throat if you can't breathe. As well as remembering if you can't talk when anaphylactic shock is happening, just make a lot of gestures that will warn somebody that you're in trouble. If you do look like you're going to, think you're going to lose consciousness, a cast member and guests will most likely be flocking to your side for aid. So, there are some things you need to be aware of too during the event, also for your health. Also be aware to keep hydrated when dancing and doing the event, because you will be sweating during the dance parties and a lot of those events. Your body temperature will go up and get sweaty when you start moving around a lot. So stay hydrated, eat well and enough food that you can keep going without having to leave early. And it's not fun when you don't eat enough either, because by not eating enough, you are losing blood sugar and wearing out. You will start feeling sluggish, possibly getting headaches, possibly stomach aches. If I don't eat enough, sometimes I get a stomach ache too, which is also not a fun event. I've been to that part where at Disneyland a couple times I didn't eat enough even though I thought I did. And unfortunately after that I got a really bad headache. Then one time when I didn't eat enough I got a stomach ache. So not a fun event. You don't want to get to the point where you have to leave the park early because of a medical problem. And the other thing to say too is that it would be advisable to maybe, if people do have one drink, would be advisable because you are limited to 2 drinks typically for most of the events. But if you do get drunk somehow, do the right thing and just kind of, go out of the park if you need to, or just go sit down and, mellow out for a while. And another thing to remember as well is that if you are caught harassing cast members, characters, or guests, yes, like I said earlier, you will most likely be escorted out and banned, at least temporarily from the park, if not permanently, if you hurt people. There are some serious, consequences to acting up in these parks. Cast members will most likely not say anything really mean to you, but if you do something bad enough, you'll get some lectures that you're not prepared for, including by the Anaheim security outside the parks, or even possibly getting talked to by the Anaheim PD. So don't be one of those people. It's not worth it. Also, for those staying in a hotel like I am for the after hours events that you're going to, which is advisable in a lot of ways because of the events ending at 1 a.m., remember too, when you're going to walk on Harbor or any other street you're staying on, just also remember that there's a lot of other people in the same boat as you, and don't try to, cross the crosswalk on a, red light or whatever, or no walk sign when it has the orange hand up. You're going to get hit by a car over there easily by doing that, because that's a very busy intersection on Harbor. Harbor Boulevard can be really, really crowded all the time. The thing you also must be aware of is that once you get near some of the hotels, be aware of your safety. Be aware of anybody that looks suspicious, oddly dressed, or, kind of looking a little bit menacing. And if somebody gives you some gestures that you're afraid of, that you're not quite sure what they mean, go up to a security guard on Harbor, or call the police, or walk into another hotel and then ask to use the phone to phone the police. Try not to draw attention to yourself unless it was needed, like what happened to me. A few years ago, when I was walking to an old hotel called the Desert Palms that I no longer stay at, I was followed by a man in all black clothing that looked like a transient, and he grabbed me by my shorts. And it was so scary, I didn't know what to do at first. But finally, I mustered up the courage, swung my body a little bit enough to go to the side, scratched him really hard on the face and the arms, and he put me down, pretty hard too. I landed with a thud, but enough where I could still walk and run. I ran into another hotel and called the police and my mother at that point after getting grabbed. As I scratched the person too, I did realize how, that adrenaline rush when you're in danger as well really does surprise you how strong you're going to be. Because I didn't realize that I got him so hard that I broke like 2 nails. Yeah, so obviously I got him good at that point. But you just need to be aware of your safety. And I promise now to many people that I will never stay near that side of that area again. I always stay on Harbor Boulevard as close as I can to the crosswalk to go to the security area for the Disneyland Resort. Because I no longer have trust in a lot of other people just walking the streets. It's, hard to say, like, you don't want to talk to too many people out there, but it's true. You don't really know who you can trust anymore. And it's frustrating because you do want to try to, maybe ask for directions or, ask somebody a kind, question or give them a compliment. But it's not very advisable to talk to too many people unless you need something. As well as if you really do need information, the white shirted security guards outside of the Disneyland security entrance will gladly answer any questions you may have in regards to not if you don't know where you're going or you have a concern that you need to talk about, then you know who you can talk to. Then my other safety tips are inside the Disneyland Resort, become aware of where the first aid stations are. California Adventure is a little different in the sense that I think it's near, I think it's not too far from the entrance of California Adventure. But at Disneyland, if you go to City Hall and to ask them where the first aid station is, they'll gladly help you. Common injuries that happen at the resort, no matter if you're going to an event or the theme parks, are blisters, cuts, abrasions, bruises, falls, and injuries due to strollers or wheelchair or scooter devices, as well as not watching where you are because of the curbs and stairs. There have been lots of incidents where people will be walking and looking down at their phone or not paying attention and they fall. You need to remember that you're not only the one, that might have an injury by looking down at your phone in the park for too long. You might actually bump into somebody else and they could fall too. So be aware of your surroundings at all times, because if not, you might possibly ruin your day and maybe somebody else's too. I had one incident where I forgot they were leveling the curbs at that time on Main Street, some of the ones that I didn't remember. I was shocked to know what it felt like to fall at Disneyland. I was watching where I was going, but I was not aware of them flattening the curbs at the resort. I fell down on the curb pretty close to where the Coca-Cola refreshment corner is. When I fell, I scraped both of my knees until they bled and hit pretty hard. I was embarrassed. A cast member and 2 guests came up to help me up and asked if I was okay. I was then taken to first aid to get my cuts cleaned up and bandaged. It was embarrassing, but everybody was very, very nice and, there to help me. But I sure don't ever want it to happen again. So now that I know those things are different at the resort than they had been in previous years, I now know where the curb is, that when it goes flat and back up. So really be careful on those curbs. Also, another common thing a lot of people don't know is with slippery surfaces at the resort, such as if anything gets wet, like the ground or a store floor that has tile on it or hardwood, you can slip. Be aware too that the tracks that are for some of the vehicles on Main Street can cause injury if your clothes drag to the ground or if your shoelaces become untied. Make sure if you're wearing tied like lace shoes, you tie your shoes and make sure they stay tied. Also be aware if your pants drag on the ground, you really don't want to be wearing stuff that drags on the ground because it could cause a really bad injury if you can't get your pant leg off of those tracks, because then something can come out and hit you. The other thing to watch out for too is having clothes that drag so you trip over them going to a ride or an attraction. Such common injuries happen when you're on stairs. Stairs are an injury waiting to happen sometimes at the parks. Pushing, guests that don't want to wait. Guests will get rude sometimes and start going, come on, get out of my way. Like, they don't have any patience. Don't let people push you around. Kindly ask, them to say, I'm sorry. I'm here waiting in line too, and, please don't push me. Use your words instead of your actions. A lot of people that have special needs that are not very verbal sometimes do use their hands and actions more than their words because they're limited on their words. Sadly, some of them will lash out. If that person that is near you is limited in vocabulary, kindly, ask a cast member for help or just tell the guest, it's okay, calm down. I'm here in line too. Not to lash out at them. It's frustrating sometimes to deal with a guest that may not have as much speech vocabulary as you do, but you can, help that person a lot by, being kind to them. Some calming mechanisms also can include having the guest, in line with you that might be limited in speech or mobility. Ask them, how their day is going, or ask them, if they need anything. Be kind and make that person's day better too. By not responding to something in a negative way with the guests with special needs, you can also make your trip better by possibly meeting a new friend that day. It is better than causing trouble and making that person's day, along with yours, a negative experience. Also, the other thing to watch out for is guests who are not special needs being a little bit rowdy, pushing in line cutting, and people trying to hold places for people. It's not okay to try to hold your space for somebody, especially when it's a long line, because you will also make the line slow down and make it very uncomfortable for guests when you scooch by them all the time. You're not doing yourself any justice by holding the line. You are just making the waits longer. You're going to make people angry, and you're going to definitely not look like somebody who wants to associate with you at the park. The tough thing is, too, by holding the line as well, you're going to make a lot of people say mean words to you. You're going to make people angry, and you're going to make the cast members upset. Even though the cast members have to be careful what they say to you, it doesn't mean that they're not thinking in their heads how they're so mad at you that they could just scream at you. But they have to be careful on what they say when they're employed. at the Disneyland Resort, of course. Guest courtesy and rules in their jobs. So just be aware that as a line cutter, you're not doing yourself any justice. You're being mean, and you're going to look like somebody who is a total jerk. So don't do it. I had myself, I was angry too when a teenager cut me in line last time for Pirates of the Caribbean. I told the girl she was not going to get in front of me, and I was not going to let her cut me. I said no. I put my foot down, and I told her, if you try to get in front of me, I will just really try to block you the best way I can and get a cast member for help. Once she found out I was not going to give in to her, she left the line in anger, stamping her feet like an immature 5-year-old. That is not the kind of guest you want to encounter. But sadly, it does happen. After putting my foot down and dealing with the unruly guest at the park, I felt better that I did not give in to her. By not giving in to somebody who is a line cutter, not only are you being a responsible guest for yourself and others, but you are being a role model too by not letting this person win. You're showing people that you're a responsible guest. Always be responsible for yourself, and also know when to step in when somebody is trying to ruin your day. But do it the right way. Like I said earlier, keep your hands to yourself and get a cast member's help if something is wrong. Don't hit. Keep your hands to yourself. Try not to also cuss anybody out, because if you're caught, yes, like I said earlier, you could be escorted out of the park, either for a day, a week, a month, or even a whole year or longer. It's not a nice experience to be escorted out of a park. I've seen people go through that, and yes, you try not to pay it, any attention, but you see people yelling at the security guards and the cast members. Don't be that person. The last little part of this video is going to be back to the after hours events, like with throwback night or any other dark events, after dark events. Remember as well, when you're in line getting your food or mobile ordering may not always be convenient depending on food times for these events. They may not also be available all the time. Most times, you will actually have to get into a line for food at one point. And some of the lines might be really long. But unfortunately, with these after dark events, yes, there's limited crowds there, but if the event's sold out, they can still be super crowded. Once again, with lines, have courtesy, no fighting, no cutting in line, and no being mean to everybody. Everybody's hungry by the time they get in those lines. Practically, some people will be saying they're starving at that point because they waited to have a food item and didn't eat a lot because they didn't want to spoil that special meal they want. As well as the other thing, sometimes accidents happen too in line, like somebody spills their food or their drinks. If that happens and you might be sadly in direct contact with a drink or something that might spill on your shoes or your clothes, sadly it happens. Another thing to watch out for is spilled liquids out in the line queues or around the resort. Don't slip in that, drink. Imagine what it would feel like to slip in ice and sodas or icy, slushy drinks. It would not be a fun experience, but it happens. Also, watch out for hot items with food that might be spilled by a guest by mistake, such as nacho cheese and other sauces that are hot, pizza, hot coffee. Sadly, things get spilled too when they're hot, and sometimes they do hurt other guests by mistake. And you just need to be aware on what to do if something accidentally burns you. If you are burnt by a food or a drink by mistake, even though it's going to hurt, you can cry if you get burnt really bad, but don't hit that other person that accidentally spilled on you. Calmly go up to a cast member after you calm down and explain the situation and go to first aid if needed. If it's really bad, hopefully it wouldn't be, go ask the cast member in first aid what measures you need to take to help your injury heal better. Hopefully it wouldn't resort to, having to go to ER. But injuries have happened, and it's not uncommon to see a guest, unfortunately, have to leave the after-hours events due to an injury. Unfortunately, it's not fun to get injured in any way, but it will happen on occasion. With guests, hurrying through the resort to go to events or rides or a dance, people may not always be thinking of other guests' safety. Worry about yourself, and then worry if somebody is going to, bump into you at that moment. Calmly tell that person, please stop. You're going to, bump me. Or say, stop. But don't hit that person or cause any harm to that person. As well as also watching out if you're doing something, like looking at your phone, or also, doing stuff that's going to cause a distraction for others. It's not fun to know all these rules and stuff that you need to look out for, but it's the safe way to go to these events. The last little part of this presentation is also going to include, now when it's time for the event to stop at 1 a.m, the announcement will come over the park speakers that the event is either over or is winding down. You will then be told to start making your way to the exits. Some stores will remain open for about half an hour to an hour after the parks close or an event ends. But I don't know about the after hours events. But because it's so late, you probably do not want to be going to most of the stores when you start leaving the event. You're going to be tired at that point. 1 a.m, that's late. Also, it depends on how far you have to drive or walk. By all of that, you are going to be super tired and possibly irritable. But be careful walking or driving, and use common sense and courtesy when exiting the parks and going home or going to a hotel. I also know too that if I start getting really, really tired and I can't walk very far sometimes, I call Lyft and use that as a common courtesy to go back to the hotel if I'm tired instead of walking. And that might be advisable a lot because it's so late. Walking back that late, you don't know what's out there. I don't know much about animal problems in Anaheim as much as I do people, but that might be an issue as well. Coyotes, raccoons, possums, any of that can be around. So also watch out for those kind of issues. Also beware of skunks. Skunks are another thing that you need to watch out for in these areas. Skunks love to hide in places, and then they'll spray you if they see a threat. So watch out for that. So that would be my video for the day. If you have any questions, comments, or anything that you would like to know about these after hours events, you can leave a comment down below in the comment box. And you can use, the chat rooms and stuff too to talk to me. It's good for, anything I can answer to help you make your time at the Disneyland Resort special. I hope I can help you. Have a great day. Bye.